It's no secret that crime is at an all-time high in America, especially in big cities. Now, I know there will be a couple of weird people that will disagree. They will try to show you fake pie charts and fake graphs to say otherwise, but we all have eyes and we all have ears. Don't let them deceive you. You know, we're old enough to know that things weren't always this way. I'm only 30-something years old, and I know for a fact that things weren't this way when I was growing up in the 90s. And I know that the majority of you all watching this video are older than me, and you come from a time where our country was much safer. But everyone's been trying to figure out what's the answer to this. And the answer is we have to be kind of tougher on crime. Crime is always going to exist. But I don't remember a time where we were just letting violent criminals out of jail, left and right. You can attack someone on the subway today and you'll be free by the morning. You don't even have to post bail or anything. They're letting violent criminals out. They're letting these people out so they can prey on innocent people. And because of that, our cities are no longer as safe as they once were. Well, there's been a lot of attacks, a lot of violence on the subway up in New York recently. And when I say recently, it's been going on for years, but they came up with an answer to this problem. And I guess the answer they came up with was deploying a bunch of heavily armed National Guardsmen to patrol the subway. Now, I see a lot of people cheering this on. And I'll be honest, if I'm someone that's living in New York who is constantly harassed and is scared for my life on the subway, I'm probably going to be happy when I see armed military men standing there. You know, as I get on the train, I'll probably be happy. But as everyone cheers this on, and not everyone, but as people cheer this on, I'm telling you right now, I don't think this is a good look. This wouldn't be necessary if they were locking up violent criminals. This wouldn't be necessary if they weren't just letting people off because, you know, they don't want to be viewed as racist or something along those lines. And at some point, we got to have the conversation, folks. Everyone wants to steer away from it. But it's only really one group of people in America that commits the majority of these violent crimes. But we're supposed to not talk about that, right? We can't acknowledge that. The whole country has to suffer because one group of people just seems to be constantly, violently attacking other people for no apparent reason. But hey, we have to pretend like that's not a problem. Instead of addressing that issue, instead of just having a difficult, sensitive conversation, everyone's scared of being labeled a bigot or an ist or a phobe for telling the truth. So instead of just sitting down and having a conversation, we're going to deploy the freaking military to the substation. We're going to put the military in the subway. We're going to have the National Guard riding the city bus with you all. Oh, you want to get on the trolley? You got to check in with the heavily armed National Guardsmen. All because we don't want to have sensitive conversations and because we don't want to keep violent criminals in jail simply because they may look a certain way. And that's the facts. But as people cheer this on, yeah, finally some law and order in New York, I don't think people see this for what it is. You know, they're releasing these violent criminals for a reason. They want chaos. They want destruction. They want you to be scared. Because when you're scared, you're going to turn to daddy government for help. You know, there's been a lot of talk about them implementing martial law and stuff like that. But how is this any different. They purposely let these violent criminals out so more crimes can be committed. And then, instead of just locking these people up, instead of doing the right thing, no, we're going to implement basically the military here to look over you. And at what point do we realize that we're becoming no different than China, North Korea, you name it? We're becoming just like them in every way, shape, and form. And putting the National Guard in the subway, it's not to help you or protect you. They don't give a damn about your health. They don't care what happens to you. It's about control. It's about normalizing these things. So they're going to normalize letting violent criminals out in the street. They're going to normalize the murder rate and the crime rate going through the roof, so then they can normalize putting basically the military in your city streets patrolling you 24/7. It's not a good look at all, and things don't have to be this way. I know that younger people, maybe they don't understand, but us older people know. You don't have to have the freaking military posted up walking around with weapons in order to have law and order. There used to be law and order in this country without all of that. And we used to hold people to a certain standard. It didn't matter what color they were. We held them to a certain standard. And if you did this or you did that, you were going to go to jail and you were going to stay there for a while. But that's not happening anymore, is it? What we're seeing right now happening in New York, and you are going to see this on a mass scale all across the country. This is no different than what happened after 9/11. People are scared for their safety. They're scared taking public transportation. They're scared sending their kids to school. They're scared to go to public gatherings. All of this is done on purpose, okay? The government has figured out a way to where they don't have to have sleeper cells. They don't have to do this themselves anymore. They don't have to pull off crazy things to make you, more likely to give up your freedoms. They have other people do it for them. Okay? They don't have to come up with an elaborate plan to stage an attack on America. No. They do it by letting violent criminals out. They know the tactics, they know the ways, and much like after 9/11, we are reaching this point in our country where a lot of Americans are going to willfully hand over their freedoms in exchange for a false sense of security. That's what this is. People are handing over their freedoms for a false sense of security. After 9/11, we saw this on a mass scale. Because of this terrorist attack in New York, now the government needs to be able to read through all of your emails. The government needs to spy on you. It needs to know this and know that. We have to be very careful, folks. And when I say we have to be careful, I say that knowing that it's basically too late. I know that I am talking to a brick wall. I know that my words are falling on deaf ears. Don't get me wrong. I know my audience. I know most of you all are right here with me. You get where I'm coming from. But it kind of feels like a lost cause. Over the past couple of decades, even just a few years ago with the lockdowns and everything, you see that people are willing to bend the knee to daddy government. People are willing to bend over backwards and expose their booty holes, okay? In exchange for a false sense of security. Even if that false sense of security is a little mask to put on your face. Even if that false sense of security is having armed guards at the subway. These are all things that are being implemented to try to make you feel as if you're more comfortable, you're more safe, and it makes you more dependent on the government, when in reality, they're stripping away your rights and your freedoms left and right. And when I say they're stripping them away, I don't mean that literally, because basically you're handing them over on a silver platter. So I don't think that we should be celebrating the fact that the National Guard is out here at the subway. This shouldn't be necessary. And yeah, you could look at the crime right now and you can think it's necessary, but I can tell you, there are a million other things they could be doing to make New York City safer. You don't have to directly go to, oh, let's deploy the military, but that's what they want. They want this normalized. And as people see this happening in New York, they're not going to be surprised when it happens in LA. They're not going to be surprised when it happens in Philadelphia. And before you know it, it will be in Atlanta. It will be in a city near you. And we will be living in this militarized state where we can't even go to the grocery store without checking in with the military and random stuff like that. And it may seem far-fetched, but it's a slippery slope, folks. And we're definitely going down that path, and there's no brakes. We are full steam ahead, brick on the gas pedal, and a lot of us are aware of what's happening, but we can't stop it. So we're all just headed for destruction. We're all headed for a brick wall. We're all headed for living in a society where everything that we valued as Americans is gone, all in exchange for a false sense of security, when all they had to do was do the common sense thing. And hey, maybe if someone R-words a woman on the subway, you don't let them out of jail the next day. Hey, this person's violently attacking people in New York City, maybe you keep them in jail. Maybe you stop releasing these violent criminals in the name of equity and inclusion. And oh, I don't want to be racist, so we got to let all of these people out of jail. No, that's not going to work, folks. And the sooner people realize this, the sooner people have these conversations, the sooner people just stop being so afraid to voice reality, okay? There's nothing wrong with calling things for what it is. Now, if you're making up stuff to make people look bad, that's wrong. But if you're just being honest about what is going on in our world, there's nothing bigoted or bad about that. People need to start being honest, because if you're going to be scared, if you're going to tuck your tail between your legs and be scared to say anything, before you know it, you're going to be living in a society like this, where your overlords are constantly watching you, constantly controlling what you're doing. Oh, you better think twice before you do this or you do that while you're out shopping at the grocery store, because you never know if the military is going to be there putting a bullet right in your ass or knocking you in the head with their rifle because you didn't go along with the right rules, regulations, what have you. We are on a very, very dangerous path. And even though we're in this time where we have all of these threats from the outside world, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine? What's going on with Hamas and Israel? What's going on over in Yemen? What's going on in China? What's going on in North Korea? In our reality, we are our own worst enemies. Our own worst enemies aren't over in foreign countries. It's right here on our own soil. And it's time that we acknowledge that. I'm sick and tired of everyone, everyone, we should be afraid of Putin. We should be afraid of Xi Jinping. I'm not saying those are good people. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be worried about them. But we have a more immediate threat that we're dealing with, and that's our own people, okay? Because it's obvious they don't have our best interest at heart. If they did, we would have never gotten to the point where people think it's necessary to have armed military in the subway. So obviously, they're doing these things for a reason, and some people think that it's just to cause chaos and destruction, which I agree, but that's not the end game. The end game is kind of like what you're seeing right now in the subway. The end game is we're going to have all of this violence, all of this craziness. Society is going to be falling apart to the point that people are going to beg for the government to do something. They're going to beg for the government's help. Because right now we're living in a day and age where people are waking up to the fact that we're no longer really as dependent on these people as we think. All of the people in Congress, did you not watch the State of the Union? Do you think any of the people in that room really give a damn about you? Do you think any of the people in that room really are qualified to even be there? No. They're a bunch of jackasses, folks. They're a bunch of straight jackasses. They're a bunch of idiots who are lining their pockets and will not think twice about stripping you of everything you have. But like I said, this is all part of the end game. It's not just to cause chaos, it's to have an answer to that chaos in the long run. And that answer is going to be basically restricting you from living the life, the free life that you have lived as an American up until this point. But like I said, I could sit here and talk until I'm blue in the face A lot of people will never get it, and it is what it is. But at least we know there are some of us who can we can see this stuff for what it is. We can call it out. We maybe can't change it, but at least we know what's going on. But for right now, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. While you're down there, if you're feeling generous, you can donate to the channel via Cash App, or you can help the channel for free by liking, subscribing, ringing that notification bell, and all of that good stuff. But with that being said, I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.